Welcome to Trashmagination, a podcast about reimagining trash. I'm Carla Brown. This is the 120th episode of Trashmagination, and I have an exciting announcement. Today, I am launching the first Trashmagination online course. This has been my dream to create a virtual creative reuse design school, and here I am with the first course. I am so excited to share this course with you, my podcast listeners. So in today's episode, I am sharing the story of how it took 5 years to get to this point, and maybe it will inspire you to reach for your dreams as well. I'll also tell you about how I made my first online course and what is in the course. So before 2016, Trashmagination was my personal blog where I shared photos of my creative reuse art. But in the fall of 2016, I decided to make it into a podcast. My number one goal for starting the Trashmagination podcast was to explore my artistic voice and figure out how I might make creative reuse art that was unique in the world. But it's hard to be unique when you don't know what is already out there. Through these 5 years making this podcast, I learned many important things about my own art practice. I learned that I was spending more time collecting materials and preparing to make art than actually making art. I learned that I will prioritize just about everything else in my life before making art. I tend to respond to other people's needs before my own artistic vision. And even though I started this podcast to explore every possible type of creative reuse art, that approach meant that I was seeing the potential in everything and thus not focusing on anything. 2019 was a turning point. In September, I met one of my favorite creative reuse artists, Sayaka Gans. I talked about this meeting in episode 85. Sayaka focuses on plastic kitchenware to make her extraordinary animal sculptures. She had an exhibit locally to me, so we went out for lunch. And I learned so much from our discussion, but one of the most important things I learned was that I really needed to focus, and I needed to let go of some of the materials that I had been collecting to creatively reuse into art. Now, before this, I had been decluttering mostly my non-art supply items, but now I tried very hard to give away some of those items. For each collection, I set an ultimatum, which was, I'm either going to make the item that I have been picturing making right now, or I am going to give this collection away. And in many cases, I gave the item away. I realized I had been holding on to it, but I actually wasn't that passionate to make that item. It's not easy to give away your art supplies that you've been collecting over time, especially when most people consider those items to be trash and you don't want to put them in landfill because it makes you feel bad. Some collections went to a local creative reuse center. In other cases, I found artists or teachers who wanted to use those materials. Some of the materials I made into the art that I had been imagining, like I made little snowman ornaments from some plastic bottles, and I made a weighted blanket from my blue jeans. And I've been really pleased that I gave away or used most of my collections. And of course, this project is ongoing, but I have made great progress. In November 2020, I saw a tutorial for how to make t-shirt yarn. Now, I had watched tutorials like this in the past, but they never really made sense to me. But this one really was great. And finally, I figured out how I could make a ball of t-shirt yarn in under 10 minutes. With this new information, I decided it was time to address my t-shirt collection. So I had about 6 large plastic totes filled with new and second-hand t-shirts. I had had this dream to weave rainbow t-shirt rugs. I have always loved that idea, and I thought it would be a great way to use up the various colors of t-shirts that I had been collecting. The first t-shirt rugs that I wove were the traditional type of weaving, where you put a warp on your loom and then you weave the weft back and forth. And I made 2 rugs that way, but they looked pretty much like many rugs that you might see at IKEA or a similar store, except these ones were made from recycled t-shirts. And I really loved making them, but when I posted them up on social media, only my friends liked them. And I did a podcast episode about how to weave t-shirts into rugs, but again, it was not downloaded very much. So how did I move from this traditional woven rug method, and how did that then result in me inventing a brand new way of making rugs that I call fluffy rugs? Well, first, I observed that when I was cutting the t-shirts into t-shirt yarn, it created a lot of waste. The entire top of the t-shirts from the armpits up was not being used in the ball of yarn. This is what I call the yoke and the sleeves. And as I was cutting up t-shirt after t-shirt, I was creating this big stack of yokes and sleeves. And I just felt like I have to find a way to use these up. This is super wasteful. So I started to cut those sections of the t-shirts into strips. And these strips would range in length from like 10 inches to like 3 feet long. And they started to pile up, and then I noticed that they looked like the yarn that I used to make latch hook rugs when I was a kid. So then I thought I was going to maybe go to the craft store and buy some of that mesh that you use for latch hooking, and I could maybe use up these t-shirt strips by making latch hook rugs. But it was the pandemic, and I was trying not to go to stores. I was trying not to buy things. I was trying to use them up. And also, I was pretty sure that the t-shirt yarn would not work in a traditional latch hooking tool. So then I thought, well, I'm not going to go buy that mesh, which is kind of hard and crunchy. I'm going to weave my own mesh. Mesh is just a warp and a weft. It's just a grid. I can weave that. They just have spaces in between. I can do that. And in fact, I'm going to do it from t-shirt yarn, and that will help me achieve my goal of using up my t-shirts. So then I had the problem, which was, okay, I could sit and I could weave the whole grid and then go back afterwards and attach the latch hooking. But I thought, I don't think that's going to work, because how am I going to leave a space between the lines? And so that's when I invented my new method, which is that I weave a line and then I kind of latch hook or tie on a line, and then I weave, and I do that sequentially over and over again. The first fluffy rug that I made was from white t-shirts, because I had a lot of that and I didn't want to use up my rainbow shirts until I knew this was going to work. And I also wasn't sure how many t-shirts it would take to make this rug. So I just used up, I had so many white t-shirts. And in that first rug that I made, I actually used more than 60 extra large t-shirts. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. This is definitely going to help me go through my t-shirt stash. And when I posted photos of that white fluffy rug on social media, the post went crazy. Within 24 hours, the post had 30,000 views on Facebook. Now, my typical Trashmagination posts get about 100 views. So then the next day I was posting about it some more, and that also went viral and got thousands and thousands of views. So this had never happened to me in my life in all the years that I've been talking about Trashmagination. And also in the comments, there were a ton of comments, and people were saying, you need to make a class to teach how to make this, and you also need to sell me this rug. One person also commented that they wanted to make a rug like that for their dog, because apparently there's something called a snuffle mat where you hide treats inside a thick fluffy rug that looks something like this, and they wanted to buy one for their dog. So why did I call this fluffy rugs? Well, long before I knew people would like them, I knew I loved them, because as I would weave, I would run my hands through the fluffy strips and I would be saying, oh my goodness, they are so fluffy. And so over time, I just called them fluffy rugs, and I call the little t-shirt strips, I call them fluffies. So that's why I called them that. There are some rugs that look sort of similar, and sometimes they're called shag rugs or proddy rugs, but they are not using this method. Now, the other thing is I searched for many hours on the internet to see if I could find any artists who use this same method. And I still have not found any, but if you've heard of any, please let me know, because I would like to make sure that I'm collaborating with them. The closest example I found was a group in Finland called Ragmate. So this organization hires women who are Syrian refugees, and they tie fabric onto a soft mesh. Now, it's not the same as what I do because they don't weave their own mesh like I do, and they do not use a square knot, and they do not recycle t-shirts, although they do use fabric that is waste from a factory. But if you just look at their rugs and you look at my rugs, at a glance, they look similar. And I believe that my fluffy rug techniques are unique, but I also think their rugs are gorgeous. So if you wanted to buy a rug instead of making it, then you might consider purchasing from Ragmate, which I think has a wonderful mission. So in February 2021, I had this new technique to share with the world, but I still wasn't sure what to do. And then this wonderful thing happened, which was this lady named Sharon Zagrossi emailed me. And she actually emailed me the same day that my fluffy rug posts went viral. So I thought she was emailing about that, but she was not. She was letting me know that she makes art from recycled hubcaps, and she was wondering if I was thinking about doing a podcast about hubcaps. And I was very interested, so we set up a time to talk over Zoom, and we talked about lots of things, but one of the things we talked about was this idea of making an online course. And she had been looking into it, and I had been looking into it, but she mentioned this company called Thinkific, which I checked into it that very day, and I could see this was a way better tool than a lot of the ones I had looked at. And perhaps most importantly, you could build your first 3 courses for free. So I really liked that price, and I started to build my first course. Now, one reason why I had hesitated to make a course in the past was that it was hard to find a space in my house where I could film that didn't look really messy and where my family would not disturb me in the middle of taping. Now, a few years ago, I did make some videos like that, but it was really tedious because every day I would wait till everybody went to work and school, and then I would set everything up, and I would set up the lights, I would film, and then I had to put it all away before they came back, and it made it so it was absolutely no fun to make these videos. Now, I did learn a lot from doing that project, but I also learned I didn't want to do it anymore. But what's amazing is because I have gone through this whole process of decluttering my house, and I mean, it's been a lot of work, now I finally had space. There was a space where I could set everything up and just leave it there once I had set it up. And that just made it so much more fun to make the videos for this course and so much more sustainable. So I'm really happy about that. And that was another benefit of doing my decluttering project. So I'm going to describe how the course looks as of today. And my plan is to keep adding to this course as my students ask good questions. And so keep that in mind if you're listening to this podcast far into the future. Probably the course will have a lot more than what I'm going to describe right now. So the course has 4 chapters. The first chapter explains how this fluffy rug method is different than other types of weaving or latch hooking or whatever fiber art, and also why it's important to creatively reuse t-shirts. The second chapter talks about what materials you will need, such as your loom and the t-shirts, and it shows you how to prepare the t-shirts. The third chapter teaches you how to design your rug, and the last chapter teaches you how to weave the rug. So there are currently 17 videos in the course, which adds up to 125 minutes or about 2 hours of lessons. And I was really pumped by how easily those lessons just came out of me. I did not script them like I script these podcasts, and it just was amazing. The content would just pour right out of me. It just really reinforced for me that this is meant to be. So once I had built out the course and made all the videos and everything, I reached out to a group of very supportive Trashmagination fans, and I asked them if they could test the course. So they've been doing that this past week, and they've been sending me suggestions. So I want to thank my testers, who were Karen, Marna, Sharon, Eileen, Louisa, and my mom, Gloria. So here's some of the things that they said about the course. You have a wonderful presence, and I love your enthusiasm and care with the step-by-step instruction. I feel like I definitely have all the information I would need to make a fluffy rug. Your information is very thorough and easy to understand. I worried 2 hours might be too long, but not so. You were articulate and thorough, and your passion was unmistakable. And here's some feedback that meant a lot to me. Your space looked great, and the scene you set up is one where I would like to spend time. Yay for decluttering! So I want to mention also other people who've supported me as I put this together. The group I want to mention now are my Friday night drawing group. So I met these ladies through a Tycho conference last summer, and ever since then, we have been drawing on Friday nights. We're from all across the United States. We're all different ages and backgrounds, and it's just been an amazing group. And it was nice to talk with someone brand new to the world of Trashmagination. They had never listened to this podcast. They knew nothing about it. And talking with them gave me a fresh perspective and a new energy to really make this course happen. So you know that I started this whole process as a way of getting rid of the t-shirts that I had been collecting in those plastic totes. And my goal was to get that collection down to 0. Well, I have made a huge amount of progress using up those t-shirts. But now that I am deep diving into making these fluffy rugs, I actually needed more t-shirts. And amazingly, one of the people who saw my initial post about the white fluffy rug on Facebook, she had boxes of new t-shirts from a special event, and that event is now over, and the t-shirts were unwanted. So she shipped them to me. And when she first offered to do that, my first reaction was, oh no more t-shirts. But then I realized, this is it. This is my calling. This is what I am meant to do right now. So Kaylin is my t-shirt angel. And I want to thank Kaylin for shipping me these beautiful t-shirts. I am so grateful that she was interested and excited and wanted to support me in this t-shirt creative reuse journey. The next people I want to thank is my husband, Bob, and my parents. Since this is already sounding like an Oscar speech, I might as well keep going with that. So as I was weaving these rugs, every night my husband would come. He would check out my loom and see my progress, and he would give me so much encouragement. And he built the loom in the first place long before we had any idea that this was going to happen. So yay for him. And I want to thank my parents because my whole love affair with weaving started when I was a teenager and our family went to Finland and they took me to a weaving center. And that's where, I just fell in love with weaving, and I have been wanting to figure out something related to weaving for my whole life since. So this is the part where I hope my story helps you. And the truth is that when I started Trashmagination as a blog and then a podcast, my dream was really quite amorphous and foggy, and I really didn't know what I wanted out of it. So I guess what I want to say to you is if your dream is at that stage, I don't want you to give up. I want you to make something. I want you to tell people that you care about that. Most of the people that I just mentioned, I didn't even know them when Trashmagination started, but they just came to me because I put out that information, and they keep sending me stuff. People keep sending me ideas. The world wants to help you. They want you to be successful. So the only thing is they don't know what to send you if you don't explain at least a little bit what you're looking for. So I guess it may sound like the process of making the fluffy rugs was a very linear process, but it definitely was not. It's been years of kind of researching a lot of things and exploring a lot of things. But I guess the key point is make something and let it evolve and trust that it'll get where it needs to be. And if I can help you with that, please let me know, because it's really important that we do what we're supposed to be doing. So now I want to invite you, my podcast listeners, to check out my Fluffy Rug course. So you can sign up at the URL that's in the show notes. And actually, just for signing up, you get the first 5 videos are free. You can just watch them, and they're very helpful. They help explain what materials you might need and where you might be able to get them, and hopefully even for free. And then when you watch those videos, hopefully that helps you understand if this seems like something you would be interested in doing, and if my teaching is done at a level that makes you feel comfortable. And hopefully it pumps you up so that you really want to do it. But if you get to that point, the course at this point, I'm setting the fee for $20 for the first 50 students. And I'm starting that at a very low price because I want to say thank you to you, my podcast listeners, for downloading my podcast, listening to me talk about this, and caring about creative reuse. And also because I'm hoping that since you already are familiar with Trashmagination, you will take the course and then you will give me lots of questions and thoughts, and you will help me make the course better. So thank you for listening. I hope you will check out my fluffy rug course. Until next time, may you see t-shirts and fluffy rugs as a source of art in your life.